So, top-ranked promoter Bob Arum believes that Terence Crawford, undefeated multi-divisional champion, versus Errol Spence, undefeated single division champion, between both of them as the undisputed matchup, the fight will not happen. He claims that it's too risky to put the fight on because of the purse requirements for this undefeated matchup. And he claims that the number of pay-per-view buys required to cover the large amount of fees, how big this fight would be very big. And he believes that piracy, which is a form of illegal streams, will limit the pay-per-view buys. I would say, personally, based off of this situation, pay-per-view buys are very important when it comes to funding the fighters. The more fighters earn pay-per-view, the more that they could pay the entire group of the entire promotion. And if there isn't that much money being made around, you shouldn't expect a big, gigantic fight, because the promotion would not be able to fund it. They wouldn't be able to fund it at all. The requirements of having a big fight of this pedigree would be a lot of money. And if there isn't much money being made from other fights, I doubt that these things would happen. Like I've said in one of my videos before that, despite how big and how monstrous this fight can be, the fight could be, never happen. This fight could never happen simply because of how little funding there would be based off of other fighters' earnings and illegal streaming and the lack of pay-per-view buys. Really, if you want to motivate people to buy more pay-per-view, what you should probably do is lower the cost of pay-per-view itself instead of having it for $80. I feel as though you are more likely to get purchases and it would be a lot easier to buy. It would motivate people to buy the pay-per-view a lot more than, per se, having higher costs in the first place. I'm sure most of these boxers would have higher pay-per-view numbers if the pay-per-view was a lot less. Instead of having 300,000, it could go to 500,000. Instead of having lesser pay-per-views due to the fact that PBC and these other promotions want to have more money for these pay-per-views, like Andy Ruiz versus Luis Ortiz. Is that really pay-per-view material? Andy Ruiz has been inactive. Luis Ortiz didn't perform well in his last fight. Number two, they both aren't that draws. I mean, Andy Ruiz has gotten more reputation ever since he beat Anthony Joshua, but he lost that fight afterwards. He may look promising he may still be watched by many other heavyweights, but they're not heavyweights, but fans of the heavyweight division or, hardcores, but neither do both of them really sell that much. These guys aren't sell fighters. These guys, if you ask who is Andy Ruiz at a store, nobody's probably going to recognize him, or nobody's going to come to terms with, oh, he's a boxer. Nobody's going to think that. Nobody's going to have any idea who he is. And it would be on a rare occasion that they would know. The same with Deontay Wilder, even though he's one of the biggest stars in boxing today. One of the biggest problems with this fight is just the fighters itself. Unfortunately, these fighters are worth more than how much they are being paid. But as much as I could say that, they don't sell that much. People want to consider these fighters superstars, and they really aren't. These fighters are not superstars. If they were superstars, everyone would know about them. You'd be able to ask someone at a store who they were. Danny Garcia is not a superstar. Roy Jones Jr. was never a superstar. He was a star in the realm of boxing, but true superstars are not stars in only the realm of boxing. A true superstar is a Floyd Mayweather. A true superstar is a Mike Tyson. And it makes sense for Bob Arum to say this. It makes sense, even though it would be disappointing news to hear the promoter of Terence Crawford say that this fight potentially may not happen due to the pay-per-view numbers. And, Bob Arum does have a, reputation for being a penny pincher. But despite that, if a pay-per-view numbers don't increase, there would be even less money to cover the cost of the enormous purses. And Terence Crawford's demanding so much money. He's demanding a lot of money for this fight. He's demanding so much money for someone who doesn't really sell fights, basically. He's not that great of a salesman when it comes to fighters, no. He may be an excellent fighter, but he isn't a salesperson. He's not a salesperson. Errol Spence, from how I observe it, is more of a salesperson than a Terence Crawford, you know. It seems to me that Errol Spence is able to gather an audience a lot more easier than a Terence Crawford, despite how well Terence Crawford is seen at, like, fan base wise. Because he has some crazy ass fans. They think Bud's gonna beat Canelo. I mean, actually, I can even say that because at one point, actually, I do think at a certain time and place, Bud can beat Canelo, but I digress. But, you know, Bud can beat Tyson Fury, something like ridiculous like that. Right? Now, people will always claim piracy is hurting pay-per-view, but which is fine because, you know, the more piracy there is, less people are going to buy it and support the fighters. You know, but not everybody's going to watch a fight that costs. Not everybody's going to waste like $78 or almost dang near $80 for a fight that everybody knows the result of. I'm not saying Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence. No, that's a 50-50 fight. That's valid to pay for it. But if we're speaking about other pay-per-views and not that good cards in the first place, then yes, more people are more likely to, you know, pirate. And as for PBC and the pay-per-view numbers, I understand that they do still get bag from hopping these pay-per-views. I just think they should lower their costs. Then maybe if they lower their costs, more people are more likely to even buy them. I don't think this pay-per-view, I don't think this mechanism for how they operate is going to last in the long run. I think lowering the pay-per-view costs may help in terms of longevity. You know, I'm no expert business person, even though I do plan on getting more fluent in that department, but it may be better in the long run. I think with the mentality that they're going with now, it may hurt them in the long run, actually. It may actually hurt them in the long run, especially with some of these fighters, because, you know, especially with like a Gervonta Davis, because I understand despite Gervonta Davis's lack of, you know, elite competition, or at least competition that's notable on his resume, he still sells out arenas while Ryan Garcia cannot, right? Because Ryan Garcia is not as popular as Tank in the realm of boxing. Ryan is the more fluent social media fighter, of course. He's more fluent in terms of social media popularity, but in terms of actual boxing popularity, Ryan Garcia is not as big as Gervonta Tank Davis. You know, you have less people willing to buy stuff from Ryan Garcia than a Tank, for instance. Really, all three of them, Gervonta Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, and Devin Haney all have potential to easily outsell both Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. Number one, they're younger. Number two, they have been promoted better from how I observe. Number three, before I even became a fan of boxing, I knew about essentially all three of them back in like 2019, 2018. While I didn't know too much about Errol Spence or Terence Crawford. I like to use this as like a scale because I'm a new boxing fan. I became a boxing fan in 2020, so I'm 2 years in this sport. And when I wasn't even a casual. I just didn't watch sports. You know, I like to use this example, especially when it comes to boxers and who were draws and who weren't, from how I observe it. If I knew about a boxer as a casual and it was advertised to me on either social media or mobile, he probably was a pretty big figure in the sport of boxing, in my opinion. Because a lot of boxing fans who have been around boxing essentially their entire lives say that this fighter is a superstar, not because they hear about him in the boxing community, but what about the casuals? Really? Cristiano Ronaldo is a star. He's an actual star, even though that's soccer, but still. So to go into detail, right? Okay. Anthony Joshua, right? 2016, I heard about Anthony Joshua. 2017, I heard about Anthony Joshua. You know, 2015, I heard about Deontay Wilder, but here's the thing. I saw some video on the internet, this guy named Deontay Wilder beating up some internet troll on the internet. That's how I found him, because I found the video of him beating up Charlie Zelenoff on the internet when I was younger. I was like 10 years old at the time. I was like, dang, you ran after him. Now, my argument could be flawed because I heard about Charlie Zelenoff too, and he isn't a pay-per-view star, and he isn't even really he's popular on YouTube, but still, but in short, I would say for most examples of me being able to like hear about these fighters, I think they're more likely to spread to a casual audience, which I could judge on their potential to be like superstars. I heard about Gervonta Tank Davis. Gervonta Tank Davis was promoted actually really well. He's promoted very well. I heard about him. He was advertised as a new Mike Tyson, this new guy on Floyd Mayweather's shoulder. I even saw highlights of him, when I was younger and I didn't know much about the sport of boxing, and I was like, whoa. And I didn't hear about Tyson Fury. I didn't hear about Deontay Wilder. Tyson Fury was never the biggest fighter in terms of popularity. He wasn't. I understand he beat Klitschko first, but Klitschko, which one was more popular? Klitschko versus Tyson Fury or Klitschko versus AJ? We all know the answer. We all know. They identified Klitschko versus AJ as a passing of the torch, not Klitschko versus Tyson Fury, when Tyson Fury was the actual passing of the torch. Nobody brought up Tyson Fury. AJ was the biggest star in heavyweight boxing and probably in boxing as a whole for many years, until his loss to Andy Ruiz. Currently now, Tyson Fury is the biggest star, right? He's currently the biggest star, but even still, at one point it wasn't always this way. It wasn't. And in the UK, they got like $25 to $50 pay-per-view, No wonder why they sell so much. So yeah, like, it's a shame that this fight between Crawford and Spence wouldn't happen, but unfortunately, Crawford's demanding too much money. Crawford's demanding way too much money for someone who doesn't sell that much. And number two, Errol Spence is not a superstar. I don't think he's the one who has the demanding issues. I think Spence is pretty simple with it. But both aren't notorious talkers. Both aren't extensively popular, but both have a lot of money on the line for this fight. I understand Crawford's knocking fighters out, but he's not selling. He's not selling as much as other fighters. He doesn't sell as much. He sells, but he doesn't sell that much. Most of his sales come from Nebraska because they're loyal as hell, but still. And as for Errol Spence, he sells okay, 100,000 and 400,000 pay-per-view range for my assumption, while Crawford does like a 100,000 to 200,000 range-ish. So as I observe for the situation, I would hope this fight happens, but if one fighter who isn't worth if one fighter who isn't willing to take a seat down to make this fight happen in order to gain more money in the future, this fight may never happen. Crawford, I understand Crawford is worth probably maybe even like $15 million or something as much as that for these types of fights, but he is no Floyd. He's no Floyd in terms of reputation. He's no Floyd, man. He's not a superstar. People want to identify these fighters as superstars when they aren't. These guys aren't. They want to demand gigantic purses. These guys don't even sell. It could work sometimes. You can get a higher payday against Lomachenko, and he'll give you his own purse, then lose. So, Asatio did. He took that, and Caleb Plant held the belt hostage unless he got like a 10 million payday. But so many politics that involve these fights being made. These fighters are pricing themselves based off of skill sets, not actual character. Not actual character, man. Not actual character. These fighters do not market themselves and advertise themselves, advertise themselves in ways that would be the most profitable. These guys aren't super animated characters. They aren't super animated figures. They're pretty neutral. Errol Spence is neutral until someone talks to him, but that isn't enough. Blair Kopp's tried it, but he got tossed by Rucha. Terence Crawford, he's not really super like loud out there. Not everybody has these types of character acts. Whether if someone's verbal or not doesn't mean like the audience will gravitate towards them, but it definitely would help. Sean Porter's a talker. Sean Porter's a very vocal person, but he's not that big. He's not. And as for Crawford, I don't think he has that real set of an audience that just naturally aligns to him. I just think he is a very skilled boxer. I think the community aligns to Errol Spence more, and they are driven to him more than a Crawford, in my opinion. Despite Crawford being seen as a more skilled fighter, despite all their accomplishments, that's just how I see it. I feel like if they were both in the same championships, Errol Spence would be the more popular one. So let me know your opinions about this situation. Let me know if you believe Bob Arum. Let me know if you agree with him or disagree with him. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell because I really would like that. Thank you so much. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much. Good day.